Okay, so I want you to picture a house. It's the morning after Christmas, December 26th, 1996, Boulder, Colorado.
Right.
You're in this massive Tudor-style home, wealthy neighborhood, probably snow on the ground. Inside, the wrapping paper is likely still scattered around, the tree is still up.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be that quiet, exhausted, kind of happy morning where you just drink coffee and the kids play with their new toys.
But it wasn't.
No. Instead, at 5:52 a.m., a 911 call comes in.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, it effectively ends the holiday season for the entire country.
And it kicks off what is arguably the most obsessive media circus of the late 20th century. We are, of course, talking about the death of JonBenét Ramsey.
The case that everyone thinks they solved from their living room couch.
I feel like if you were alive in the 90s, you have this distinct memory of seeing those magazine covers.
Oh, absolutely. They were everywhere.
But here's the problem, and it's why we're doing this deep dive today. We all think we know the story. We know the characters, the pageant queen daughter, the wealthy father, the frantic mother.
But when you actually strip away all the tabloid noise and you look at the shadow of the pageant source material, the facts, they don't actually fit any of the narratives we've been fed.
And that's the mission today. We aren't here to rehash the sensationalism. We're here to look at the raw data, the strange little nuggets of information that just don't make sense, and try to understand why, nearly 30 years later, this case is technically still open.
Because it's a mass of contradictions.
A total mass of contradictions.
So let's go back to that morning, 5:52 a.m. Patsy Ramsey makes the call. She says she found a note on the back staircase. We have to start here because this ransom note, I've read a lot of true crime files. This thing is an absolute anomaly.
It is the most baffling piece of evidence in the entire case. I mean, usually a ransom note is functional. It's, I have your kid, put money in a bag, go here, don't call the cops.
A transaction.
It's a transaction. Speed is the priority because the kidnapper wants to get out of the house.
This note, it was 2.5 pages long.
2.5 pages.
I mean, who does that? I sat down and tried to handwrite 2.5 pages of text just to see how long it takes. It took me over 20 minutes. Who hangs out in a house they've just broken into while the family is sleeping upstairs and writes a manifesto?
That's red flag number one, that this isn't a standard kidnapping. The psychological profile of someone who does that is different. And the source material highlights that the note was written on the family's own notepad.
With their own Sharpie.
With their own Sharpie.
So they didn't write it with them. They stood there and improvised it. And didn't they find it like a practice note too?
Yes, there was a draft found, just the beginning of a note, discarded. So you have to imagine the scene. An intruder is standing in the kitchen, starts writing a ransom note, messes up, throws it away, and starts again.
Wow.
And then writes a 3-page essay. It implies this terrifying lack of fear. They weren't worried about John or Patsy walking down for a glass of water.
Or it implies they knew the family wouldn't be coming down the stairs.
The other way to look at it.
But let's look at the content, because this is where the movie villain aspect really comes in. The note claims to be from a small foreign faction.
Such a bizarre phrase. Small foreign faction. It reads like something out of a bad action movie. And the language, it just shifts constantly. It goes from weirdly formal, listen carefully, to very specific threats about beheading.
So strange.
But the detail that just stops everyone in their tracks is the money.
The demand. $118,000.
Not $1 million, not $500,000, $118,000.
And this is where the inside Job theory really plants its flag.
Yeah.
Because that number, it wasn't random.
Not at all.
It was the exact amount, almost to the dollar, of a bonus John Ramsey had recently received.
Right. And you have to ask yourself, who knows the net amount of a bonus? Not the gross amount, the net after taxes. That is a tiny, tiny circle of people.
It's John. It's the payroll department, maybe a bank.
It suggests the author had intimate knowledge of John Ramsey's finances.
Or, and just plain devil's advocate, they found a pay stub lying around the house. I mean, if they were comfortable enough to write a novel in the kitchen, maybe they were comfortable enough to rifle through a desk.
It's a possibility. But it anchors the crime to John Ramsey personally. This wasn't just rich family, give us cash. This was targeted. And then, of course, there's the handwriting.
This is the part that divides families at dinner tables. The police said it looked like Patsy's handwriting.
Well, let's be precise here. Experts couldn't rule her out.
Okay, that's a key distinction.
A huge distinction. They could rule out John. They could rule out others. But Patsy fell into this gray area where there were similarities, letter formation, spacing. But, handwriting analysis is notoriously subjective. It's not DNA. You can't put a probability number on it like 1 in a billion.
So just to recap, we have a note written on their paper asking for John's specific bonus in handwriting that looks somewhat like the mother's. I mean, you can see why the Boulder police showed up and immediately thought, okay, the parents know something.
Oh, absolutely. The consciousness of guilt indicators were just flashing red for them. But this is where the investigation goes off the rails.
Because they treated it as a kidnapping?
They treated it as a kidnapping, which means they didn't seal the house.
Oh, my God.
And this is the tragedy that haunts this case to this day. When police arrived, they didn't tape off the doors. They didn't kick everyone out. Friends of the family were coming over to support John and Patsy.
They were making coffee in the kitchen?
Making coffee in the kitchen, where the note was written. They were cleaning up, wiping down counters.
Wiping down potential fingerprints?
Exactly. It was a crime scene contamination nightmare. The police were waiting for a phone call from these so-called kidnappers that never came.
And it never did.
And then around 1:00 p.m., the detective on scene asks John and a family friend to check the house again just to see if anything is missing.
This part just it breaks my heart every time I read about it. John goes to the basement.
He goes to the basement into a small windowless room, the wine cellar, and there he finds JonBenét.
And the timeline shifts instantly from kidnapping to murder. But the damage was done.
Because he picks her up, right? He carries her upstairs.
He does. And look, any father would do that. You find your child, you grab them. You're not thinking about preserving evidence.
Of course not.
But from a forensic standpoint, it was the final nail in the coffin for that crime scene's integrity. Fibers were transferred. The body was moved. It gave any future defense attorney a goldmine of reasonable doubt.
And the condition of the body. We should be clear here. The media often sanitize this. This wasn't a botched kidnapping where she was accidentally smothered. This was violent.
Incredibly brutal. The autopsy showed a massive skull fracture, a blow to the head severe enough to knock her unconscious immediately, and there was a garrote tied around her neck.
And a garrote is a strangulation device.
Yes, usually a cord with a stick or handle to tighten it. That implies preparation. You don't just find a garrote lying around a suburban home. You have to make one.
And then there was the sexual assault aspect. Yes. There was clear evidence of sexual injury, which recontextualizes the entire crime. The ransom note talks about a foreign faction and money, but the body tells a story of a sexually motivated, violent murder.
And those two stories,
they just don't fit together. A political ransom and a personal assault, it's a contradiction.
That contradiction is what splits the world into two camps. The Ramseys did it, or an intruder did it.
Right.
So let's look at the Ramsey side first, the inside job. We talked about the note, but there's also the issue of entry. The police said there were no signs of forced entry.
No smashed doors, no broken locks. The house was closed up tight. The snow outside. There were reports that there were no footprints in the snow around the house, implying no one walked up to the windows.
Which makes people think, well, it had to be someone who had a key.
Or someone who was already inside. This leads to the theory that maybe an accident happened, a rage incident, or, a roughhousing accident, and the parents covered it up.
And we have to address the theory about the brother, Burke. He was 9 at the time.
We do, because the internet is obsessed with this angle. There was a popular documentary a few years back that heavily implied Burke was responsible.
But we need to hit the brakes on that one.
Yeah.
Immediately.
We do. Hard stop. Burke Ramsey sued the network and the production company behind that theory for defamation.
And he won.
He won a massive settlement. So legally and factually, there is just no evidence linking him to the crime. He was a 9-year-old boy in bed. But the fact that the theory persists shows how desperate people are to find an answer that fits that inside Job narrative.
It's the locked room mystery appeal. If nobody broke in, it must be the people inside. But, and this is a huge but, there is evidence of a break-in.
A lot of it.
And there is evidence of a stranger. It just gets ignored because it's less cinematic than the evil parents story.
Exactly. Let's look at the physical evidence for an intruder. First, that no forced entry claim isn't entirely true. There was a broken window in the basement.
The one with the suitcase under it.
Yes. A suitcase was positioned right under the window, almost like a step. There was a scuff mark on the wall. It's tight, but a person could definitely fit through there. And then there's the stun gun theory.
This one always creeps me out.
The coroner found 2 sets of abrasions on JonBenét's body that were perfectly spaced to match the prongs of a specific brand of stun gun. an air taser.
Wow.
Now, if that's true, and experts debate it, but the spacing is compelling, that changes everything. Parents don't use stun guns on children. 9-year-old brothers don't have stun guns.
A stun gun is a tool of a predator.
It is. It's used to incapacitate a victim silently. It suggests a level of planning that completely undermines the accidental death cover-up theory. You don't accidentally use a taser.
Precisely.
But the biggest piece of evidence, the scientific anchor for the intruder theory, is the DNA. And we need to be very specific about what this DNA was.
It wasn't just touch DNA, right? Like from shaking your hand.
No, and that's critical. Touch DNA is tricky because it transfers easily. If I shake your hand and you touch a glass, my DNA is on the glass.
Right.
But in this case, the lab found genetic material mixed with the blood in JonBenét's underwear.
Mixed with the blood. That places the DNA donor at the exact moment of the assault.
Correct. It is inextricably linked to the crime itself. And that DNA did not belong to John. It didn't belong to Patsy. It didn't belong to Burke. It was an unknown male.
That seems like case closed to me. You have a stranger's biological material at the scene of a sexual assault and murder. Why did we spend 10 years looking at the parents?
Because the DNA wasn't fully identified or, understood immediately in 1996. It took years for the technology to evolve enough to isolate that profile. It wasn't until 2008, 12 years later, and that the district attorney formally cleared the Ramsey family based on this evidence.
They actually wrote an apology letter to the family, didn't they?
They did. But by 2008, the court of public opinion had already delivered its verdict. And that brings us to the shadow of the pageant. We can't talk about this case without talking about the media culture of the 90s.
I remember seeing that footage on the news. The makeup, the big hair, the cowboy outfits.
You have to remember, in 1996, shows like Toddlers and Tiaras, they didn't exist. This whole subculture of child beauty pageants was completely alien to the mainstream public.
Right.
So when the media started looping those videos of JonBenét performing, it triggered a visceral reaction.
It made people feel uncomfortable.
It made people feel judgmental. They looked at John and Patsy and thought, what kind of parents do that to a 6-year-old? And that moral judgment morphed into criminal suspicion.
A huge leap.
A huge leap. People decided that because the Ramseys were weird or exploitative parents, they were capable of murder. It colored everything.
It's true.
If JonBenét had been a kid who played soccer and wore messy pigtails, the public sympathy would have been overwhelming. But because she was a pageant queen, she became a caricature, and the parents became villains.
And the media fed that beast 247. This was the birth of the cable news obsession.
It was. It was cheap to produce, it got massive ratings, and they didn't need facts. They just needed to analyze Patsy's body language for the 100th time.
So the DNA evidence, the stun gun marks, the boot print in the basement, all of that just got drowned out by the video of a little girl dancing on a stage.
Exactly. The narrative overtook the forensics.
So where are we now? I mean, it's been decades. Patsy Ramsey passed away in 2006, right?
Yes, from ovarian cancer. She died with the world still thinking she killed her daughter. She never saw the exoneration in 2008.
And John.
John is still alive, and he is still pushing. And this is interesting. If he were guilty, you'd think he'd want to let sleeping dogs lie.
Sure.
But he's doing the opposite. He's pushing for the latest technology to be applied to the evidence.
We're talking about genetic genealogy.
The Golden State Killer tech. See, right now, that unknown male DNA is in CODIS, the National Criminal Database. But CODIS only works if the killer has been arrested and swabbed for another crime.
So if he's never been caught for something else?
He's not in there. It's a waiting game. But genetic genealogy changed the game. It doesn't look for the criminal. It looks for his third cousin who took a DNA test for their heritage.
And it builds a family tree backward to find the suspect.
Exactly. And John Ramsey is publicly demanding the police do this. He wants independent labs to take the samples and run them.
And the Boulder police.
They've been hesitant. They cite concerns about the sample size, that there might not be enough DNA left to risk a test that could destroy the sample.
But surely, with the advancements we're seeing, we can do more with less now.
That's the argument. The technology is moving so fast that what was impossible 5 years ago is routine today.
It's just wild to think that the answer might actually exist. It's not that we don't have the evidence, we just haven't unlocked it yet.
That is the haunting part. We call it a mystery, but it might not be a mystery at all. The name could be sitting in a database right now, just waiting for the right algorithm to find it.
I want to circle back to something before we wrap up. If that happens, let's just say next year the police announce a match. We found him. It was a guy who lived 3 towns over, had a history of burglary, nobody ever suspected him. What does that do to us?
It forces a massive societal reckoning. Millions of people, thousands of hours of TV, decades of books, all pointing the finger at a grieving family. If it turns out to be a stranger, it means we spent 30 years tormenting the victims.
It means our gut instinct was completely, totally wrong.
And it means that the weirdness of the ransom note and the pageants distracted all of us from a very simple, very ugly truth. A predator broke in and killed a child.
That is heavy. But I think that's the takeaway here. This deep dive isn't just about the clues, it's about how we interpret them. The mirror isn't just on the Ramseys, it's on us, the audience.
Couldn't agree more. We have to be willing to follow the facts, even, and especially, when they lead away from the story we think we know.
Well, on that note, we're going to leave you to mull that over. This case is a rabbit hole, but hopefully we've given you a flashlight to see it a little clearer.
Keep asking questions.
We'll see you on the next deep dive.